what we are seeing in the region now is a case of politics trying to catch up with the economics. There have been various attempts in the past several years to shape the regional economic integration process politically. The main issue here is what kind of East Asian community if we wish to see in the future. There are many points to be discussed on this topic, but given the limited time, I will mention today only one, which is directly related to the region's strategic perspective. That is, which countries should be included in the regional integration process. This concerns the question of what kind of new equilibrium should be established in the region against the backdrop of China's rising power. There are roughly 3 lines of thinking in this regard. The first, favored by China, is that ASEAN 10 countries and Japan, China, Republic of Korea should be the main vehicle for the future East Asian community. The second line of thought is that India, Australia, New Zealand should be included in this process. Japan favored this enlarged group, ASEAN 10 countries plus 6, in the heated discussions which had taken place during the preparation period of the East Asia Summit held in 2005, as it believed that this approach could better ensure a market economy, democracy, and openness by including more countries that adhere to these values. While the summit process now counts those 16 countries as its members, it continues to coexist with several alternative forums, meaning that the question of which countries are to be included in a future East Asian community has yet to be resolved. The third line of thinking is that any important regional grouping of this kind should include the United States. Thus far, the US has favored the forum of APEC, which is Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Conference, which aims at loose regional cooperation that broadly encompasses the country of the Asia and the Pacific, including some in the American continents, while playing a crucial role for stability in East Asia through its offshore military presence. However, as East Asian regional integration progresses, it would not be surprising if within the US the debate intensifies with regard to a deeper involvement in the regional this regional cooperation. Discussions on a US direct involvement in the process, if it happens, may turn out to be profoundly divisive among East Asian countries, as it may transform entirely the nature of regional integration. Having touched upon some points related to security in East Asia in a broad sense, I'd like to mention several elements, just a simple observation to be considered in the discussion on global governance. My first observation is that regional and global governance are inseparably interconnected. I think this is a point that Thierry de Montbriard mentioned in his remarks yesterday. And what kind of regional system we shape will profoundly affect the international community as a whole. And on the other hand, what we do globally affects the entire region. I mentioned earlier that East Asia is in search of a new equilibrium, new strategic equilibrium. The achievement of proper regional equilibrium would not be possible without having the emerging powers solidly in a global cooperative system. Secondly, is the importance of the UN Security Council reform, as stressed very much, often by many colleagues yesterday. The rising importance of the emerging economies has been recognized against the backdrop of the economic and financial crisis occurring since last year. It can be said that architecture for managing international economy is beginning to adapt to the new realities of this globalized era, as is shown by the fact that, at the Pittsburgh summit, the G20 itself designated as a premier forum for international economic cooperation.
Mr. Imura, could you wind up?
Yeah, just two more minutes. Can you give me?
One.
Yeah. Well, I will go quickly. I believe that G8 can maintain important forum to discuss some of political and security issues the Russian Sherpa said yesterday. But nothing is more important than the reform of UN Security Council. And UN Security Council has essentially undergone no changes since the end of the Second World War, giving rise to the question about its legitimacy. There has been no new momentum forthcoming for the Security Council reform since a setback was dealt to the G4 draft resolution proposed by India, Brazil, Japan, and Germany. It is time to restructure it. Particularly, the regions in the world should be better represented in the global consideration. And my final point is perhaps self-evident. This is the importance of people involved in policy decision-making, understanding various regional institutions, and grasping these in comprehensive terms. I should like to point out that an issue-based approach is fraught with various risks. For example, approaches geared entirely towards human rights, democratization, economic benefits, or weapons export have the potential to destabilize regional affairs. From this perspective, I would like to emphasize, to conclude my remarks, the critical nature of inter-regional dialogues, not only at the government level, but also among academia, economics and business circles, and NGOs. For example, a further invigoration of ASEM, the Asia-Europe meeting, or AMED, the Asia Middle East dialogue, is desirable as is having a broader and more cross-sectoral range of people and institutions participate in them. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Not at all. Thank you very much, Mr. Imura, and I'm sorry to be a horrible chairman, but anyway, very interesting perspective from East Asia, and I think we can come back to some of those issues. I mean, you mentioned Korea right at the beginning. Of course, probably the greatest security problem in East Asia that exists, and one that at the moment is actually bringing together clearly not just Japan, China, but Russia and the US, all very much around the table trying to deal with the problem. So that's clearly a key issue. Now,